welcome to the Coaching Uncovered podcast, the podcast where coaches come to talk about coaching. My name is Brent Davis and I'm the host of the podcast, and I have got an Australian on the line today. Who have I got on the podcast today?
You've got Michael Cooney from the PGA Academy at Sandhurst.
Michael Cooney. There's been a bit of a theme lately with these young guns from Australia that I've had on the show. So someone like yourself who's been just out of the program, just out of the trainee program, and he's doing good things out there. You keep popping up when I'm seeing coaching articles and I'm seeing social media posts. So you're doing something right. So that's where I tend to be going with these new generation of young coaches that do really good things.
Let's talk. Let's explore. Let's challenge ideas and let's go for it.
It sounds like a plan, mate. Let's get into it. So give us a bit of your background. Tell me about what golf was like for you as a kid, for example. Let's start way back there.
Yeah, golf was very fortunate in my childhood to have a father in the golf industry who was, I believe, very, very good at what he did do and what he now does. But golf was never number one sport for me. Really enjoyed it, but footy was always the sport that was number one in my eyes. But golf was always there from a very young age. When my father was at Spring Park, I can remember back to those days where I started.
Wow.
So golf was always I don't want to stay home on a Saturday. Dad, can I come to work with you? And then that progressed into playing mini golf because there's 36 holes there. And then that progressed into, what are all those people doing out on the golf course? What are they doing? And then it just sort of snowballed from there. And very fortunate that Marty Joyce was a trainee with Richard at Spring Park. And that's how I sort of got into it. Richard was very good in terms of do what you want to do, and I'll pick you up and drop you off at whatever times, and I'll get out of your way. So for a very young age, Marty was a huge influence on me. And then that progressed to Glen Waverley. So I sort of went around where Richard went around. And then at Glen Waverley, came across a guy called Earl Thomas, who at the time was the CEO of Spalding. And he and Richard had a really, really good relationship, which turned out to be a really good relationship for me and hopefully for Earl. So very, very fortunate. And that turned into chipping competitions, pitching competitions, playing. So very, very lucky in that regard. And it sort of just developed from there. And then when Richard went to Rosanna, that obviously had a big influence on my junior career. And then meeting people like Luke Mackey, who's now basically head of medical at Golf Australia, and played a lot of junior golf with him. Isaac Sirianni, now with TrackMan, or was with Titleist. So very, very fortunate in my life to have very, very big influences, not just my father, but I can think Darren Lay, Ramsey McMaster, Ryan Lumsden. So very, very lucky in that regard.
It would help, I would assume, having those type of people in your personal circle, so to speak, from an early age, because you've dropped some names there that are pretty big in the golf industry and are still pretty big in the golf industry, and to just have the ability to ask those guys questions and to talk to them about what golf is and how they go about it and the stuff that they do must have been really, really cool as a kid.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, though. As a kid, you don't really understand that those people are who they are. Like, not that they're famous or anything like that, and not that they're saving lives or anything, but in the golf space, they're pretty cool people to be around. But someone the other day asked me, what's it like to hang around with this person? I was like, well, I've known them since I could walk. So they're just like another bloke, you and I having a beer at the pub. They're just normal people, and I'm just very lucky to be have known them from a long time and have a really good relationship with them.
Oh, that's really cool. And just quickly back to Spring Park, you beat me to the question. I was going to ask, how did you spend much time on the golf course, or were you just playing putt all the time?
Well, that's where my sort of love of putting has come from. Because as a kid, you don't pay much attention to what your dad or your mum say.
Very true.
And if your dad's trying to coach you, which Richard's never really coached me, which is fantastic. Again, what time do you want to be picked up? Here's $20, off you go. So yeah, that's where the love of golf came from, mini golf, and from chipping competitions with Earl, who's my godfather, and yeah, just a snowball effect from there.
For those that don't realise who your father is, your father is Richard Cooney, who's extremely well known and extremely good golf coach down here in Victoria and all over the country. Been state coach for years and all sorts of things going on there. So he's on my hit list too to come on the podcast, but I just wasn't quite sure how tech savvy he was going to be. So it might be an in-person one.
He's actually improved a lot in his technology usage. He's not to sort of digress from where we're going, but he's over at Latrobe Golf Park now, and he's got 8 or 9 indoor TrackMan units. So
wow,
he's probably more tech savvy than I am, which is, I don't know if that's a reflection on him or a reflection on me.
No, that's cool. But if he's tuning in, I'm definitely going to get him on the show at some point in time.
Good.
So I will hit him up. So playing at Spring Park, because it's a public golf course, obviously. Obviously, you had access to the course and to the practice facilities. Were there any, you said chipping competitions and putting, were there juniors at the club or at the course? How was the junior program set up there?
Can't really recall the junior program set up, but there was always junior clinics in the holidays. Always. So I basically got thrown in the deep end a little bit, and Richard said, off you go play with some members and learn how to score and whatnot. There was a couple of junior members, but in terms of clinics and what they would call the My Golf stuff now, that would exist. It wasn't until I got to sort of Glen Waverley where I had more serious coaching, and they had about a 200-meter practice fairway from memory. It's now actually tennis courts now because of the new freeway that's gone through the Burundara Tennis Club. They've moved that to Glen Waverley now, so there's no practice fairway at Glen Waverley anymore.
Oh, isn't it? Okay.
I think there's 18 or 19 tennis courts, or there's going to be anyway. So that was there, and they had a chipping green that you could pitch maybe 40 or 50 meters from memory with a bunker as well.
Yeah, there was, yeah.
So that's where sort of the more serious coaching sort of came into it, and there was a lot more juniors then. There would have been maybe 8 or 9 of us. I can remember playing with Adam Schiltz, who's now at Keysborough. Okay. A lot of golf with him as a junior. A lot of golf with a couple other guys that sort of don't play anymore, but keep in contact with. But yeah, it's that's where the sort of the more serious coaching that I got happened, and then that progressed when I got older.
Because it can be. I've always found with kids, if you can get a group of kids at a club that kind of grow up together, they play together, they practice together, you get that improvement just from the fact that they're on the golf course and they're playing, as you said, you're doing chipping competitions, you're having putting comps, you're playing the golf course and you're playing from the 3rd tee to the 6th green, and you're doing that type of stuff, and you get that learning and improvement just from doing that type of practice, as opposed to if you're the only kid at the club, you're playing by yourself, you're hitting balls by yourself. It can be a bit boring and a bit stagnant, I suppose. The improvement just tends to stop a little bit. So that having that group of kids around you, I'm sure, would have been fun and helpful for you. Yeah, no doubt. It definitely back to the old handicapping system where you knew how much you could drop your handicap if you shot a certain score. Like, terrible thinking now that you think about it, right? But as a kid, you know no different. So, you knew if you had this amount of points, you'd drop this amount of points on your handicap, and we were all sort of working that out and going through together. And then that really, the more I think about it now, the more that definitely helped at Rosanna, especially with the older kids, because I was sort of still 12 or 13, but the 15, 16-year-olds that were there, Isaac included, that really pushed me along, and yeah, that was fantastic. But I know what you mean, and if you do get those kids together, that's when I reckon you get the most improvement, because we can bang down the door as much as we like about our coaching, what we want done. If it doesn't come from within the kids themselves, it's sort of you're trying to push the proverbial uphill. It's really hard. Yeah, very true. You touched on something earlier that piqued my interest as well. So you said you played football as well as golf. Were there other sports involved as well, or just kind of those two are your main ones? No.
Family friends of ours, I think they still do actually. I should catch up with them. Run the Melbourne Taekwondo Centre in Malvern. So okay. Taekwondo was a massive part of our sporting life, and also swimming. Swimming, I enjoyed. Didn't love it, but did it because we could. But never really got into cricket. Liked cricket, but didn't really get into playing it. Gave tennis a go. Didn't really enjoy playing. I thought it was a bit boring, to be honest. Love watching it. Love going. Basketball played a little bit, but it was more golf and footy that were top of the tree.
Looking back on that now, did you see that as a good thing or a bad thing, playing all those different sports or trying those different sports?
Good. There's certainly aspects from both that I wish you could amalgamate into two. One of the reasons I stopped playing footy is I dislocated my shoulder.
Ouch.
I'm going to say, if I said 12 times, it could have been closer to 24. I lost count.
Wow.
Yeah, I've had 2 shoulder reconstructions on my right shoulder.
I'm guessing there's some sort of problem there with the shoulder if it keeps popping out.
I did it once when I was 15 and then should have had it operated on, but I didn't want to. And then it just kept happening, and then had it when I was 16 and then had another one because it kept happening after that when I was sort of second year into becoming an associate. So that would have been 2014 and had the second one there. But being around a team environment, I really, really enjoyed. But yeah, copped it a little bit physically. So it kept happening, and that sort of hampered the golf a little bit. And then, yeah, just sort of went, well, I can't really do football anymore. So golf it was. Not that golf it was, but it's sort of just a natural and organic flow into golf. Progressed from there.
That makes sense. It's
I wish one thing I probably regret is playing too much football.
Okay.
I always thought I was going to be the next captain of Collingwood. So I wish those dreams ended a bit sooner than what they did.
Collingwood, man, you've got all your teeth, mate. You can't be a Collingwood player.
I've got a few tattoos though, so
fair enough.
Yeah,
it's curious with the team sport aspect you said there, and I find because golf can be challenging sometimes because you are the only person out there and you haven't got that team aspect, and it generally tends to work both two ways. It tends to work how you explained it, like you enjoyed the team aspect sport, but some people will find that I'm relying on their performance to have a win, for example, whereas in golf it's all down on you essentially. There's no one to fall back on, or there isn't anyone to stop you from having a win, so to speak. So the team stuff is obviously fun, and I think that's where that group of juniors together can help that type of process. But golf tends to attract that person where that person that's by themselves that just thinks that I'm going to be the only person that's going to control my outcome.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And you see it in junior clinics and even high level programs. You see that. It's a bit of a shame, but there's sometimes you just can't do much about it. Don't get me wrong. I wish we could all play in a team sport. You don't really get that though if you don't make state teams or you don't make, President's Cup teams. You get it in pennant, but yeah, it's only for a small window of the year, and if you're injured or you miss or you're playing tournaments and you miss pennant, you don't really get too much team golf, which is a bit of a shame, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles, unfortunately.
Yes, that's how it works. Now, you get to spill the beans now. We've had Joycey on the podcast before, so I've heard his side of the story, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
How bad a trainee was he? How much of a problem child was Mr. Joyce in the pro shop? Did he do the work? Was he a hard worker? Was he a pain, or what was he?
No, I think Richard ran a pretty good ship. Like I can't remember Marty being told off at any stage, but I think Richard was pretty fair in that regard. Work hard, play hard, do what you need to do. Just turn up on time and open the door and lock the door and count the money, and as long as he doesn't get any phone calls in the middle of the night, everything should be okay. I can't recall too many. Yeah, I was probably too young to. If something did happen, I was probably too young to recall too many incidences, if you like. But yeah,
it's probably the phone calls that you get at 2 a.m. are generally okay. It's the ones you get at 6 a.m. from the golfers saying the pro shop hasn't been open because the boys haven't turned up can cause the problems, I'm sure.
No, I think Richard probably scared the living daylights out of a few people potentially if that phone call ever came across. But I can't remember having one or someone else, because Richard's had a few trainees. I can't remember too many not rolling in at 6 o'clock or whatever time we needed to be there. So I can't spill too many beans, unfortunately, on Marty's escapades as a trainee.
He's just a square bear, obviously, by the sounds of things.
Yeah,
So no,
correct.
that's all fine. Now, I was extremely, I suppose, guilty is a good enough word to say it, as a trainee, on experimenting on the juniors with my coaching skills, and sure I screwed a few of them up over the years, but certainly built my coaching skills with the juniors. So, did he spend much time with you, coaching you or helping you out?
Richard didn't do a lot. Marty did a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know. He probably did. I certainly have. I think we'd all be lying if we said we didn't. I just today, in fact, I spent basically the whole day with Jamie Donaldson, doing some aim point stuff.
Yeah, well, sorry, he's back in the country.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be experimenting with some of the juniors on some green reading stuff and some really cool backswing length and backswing time, forward swing time, and speed stuff with them. So yeah, absolutely. I'm sure I have been a little bit of an experiment, and I'm sure I have. Well, actually, I know I have experimented with juniors because it's just it's not the way it is, but it's they might pick up something that an adult might not pick up, especially with technology. Kids are always on their phones. My 3-year-old daughter knows how to get into my phone, open up YouTube Kids and watch her favourite Peppa Pig episode or whoever she's watching. So, yeah, sometimes kids will blow your mind in terms of what they can do on a phone. I'm very fortunate at Sandhurst to have 4 TrackMan units inside, so I can jump in there if I need to, and they know how to turn it on and get into games or do some shot analysis stuff. So, yeah, absolutely experimented. It's just the way of the world, I think.
Oh, well, good. The kids do work it out really quickly.
They do.
Yeah, that's really cool. So it sounds like, I'm curious with your father. You said he didn't do a whole lot of coaching with you. I was curious about how he approached it, because I've got a show coming up soon with some pros that have got kids in high school programs and junior programs, and just curious about how they go about coaching their own kids. And finally, my own son is finally showing some golf interest, so he's going to be coming into the golf world over the next couple of years, so I'll be in that space as well. So I'm curious what approach Richard took. You've kind of covered off on it a bit, and then how you found that approach as an actual kid.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, if I had a junior tournament, it was, here's $20. What time do you want to be picked up? What time do you want to be there? Where's the tournament at? Let's plan for getting you there at whatever time you want to, and I'll pick you up. Being the state coach, I'm sure, and you would have seen this in your coaching, the aggressive parent's maybe not the right word, but the overbearing parent, and I see it now. It's frightening. So being the state team coach, I'm sure he saw that and goes, I'm not going to be that parent. So Richard was fantastic. And I haven't spoken to him about this, but yeah, he was really, really good. If I had questions, he'd be the first to answer. So yeah, it was fantastic. And then Marty did a lot of coaching. Probably hasn't been, I still have lessons now. I don't play a great deal, but I would have had more lessons in the last 5 years not playing than I would have had in the first 15 years of my golfing life.
Okay.
Whether we can have maybe more of a mature conversation, or whether there's no pressure anymore. I'm not trying to play. Not that I was a great player, but I'm not trying to play for in tournaments or anything like that. But yeah, very fortunate in that regard. If I ever needed a practice round somewhere, he'd be the first person to give me the name and the number of the guy and ring him up or send him an email and whatnot. But was very lucky. And then what he did do though was, I sound like a tour player here, but I'm not. I had a very good team around me. So I had Ramsey, then I had Darren Lay, Luke Mackey, Noel Blundell. So I had really good people to learn different skills off. And then, of course, Marty and Ryan Lumsden I've done 3D stuff with. So I had some pretty good people to answer and ask questions from, not just Richard, which is fantastic. So if my kids ever decide golf's their thing and they want to do that, it's something that I'd definitely be pushing them in a very similar direction.
Sounds like you had the whole Golf Australia high performance team in your house every weekend. By the sounds of things.
That was Marty lived around the corner.
Okay,
and we were in Ashburton. Marty was in Ashwood, and it was a drive and a 7-iron away.
Nice.
So, very much. I mean, when TrackMan first came out, when Putt Lab first came out, and when they both had them, it was very much let's see what goes on at home and in the garage, and it was fantastic. Brooke Salmon's another one, massive influence, huge.
Okay, Brooke, if you're tuning in, you're coming on the podcast too at some stage. So
yeah, massive. He's probably I'd say he'd have almost the greatest mind in Australian golf.
Okay,
he's very much underrated. He's fantastic.
It's I've always enjoyed seeing him go about his stuff. Like he's been involved with trainee schools over the years, and he just seems so calm and just how he coaches it. It just seems so simple the way he explains it. No, that's certainly really cool. So, Mr. Salmon, if you're tuning in, hit me up because you're coming on the podcast at some stage as well. So it sounds like with your dad, he's not really the kind of coach or kind of person to push himself onto you, and he's understood back. So how has that impacted you, or how has that influenced you in your coaching? How early do you think kids should be getting formal type coaching?
I really think it's dependent on their maturity levels. Something that Richard was good at. If I was being lazy on the couch on a Sunday, there'd be just a snarly little soft, would Tiger be sitting on the couch on Sunday at 12 o'clock on his phone doing nothing? Oh yeah, that's a good point. That's, so if the kid's got maturity, he can have lessons at any, or she can have lessons at any stage. Yeah. I would suggest definitely the pathway through My Golf to get them started. I think that's a really good system. Or US Kids Golf is a really good system too. The graduating system through pathways and whatnot. So then that formal coaching can come sort of when they graduate through those systems. I don't think you could probably have I don't think a kid would last half an hour who's never picked up a club before or done some sort of My Golf or junior clinic or US Kids Golf clinic. But that's not to say they can't, but I just think that's a really good pathway because they're learning the basic fundamentals. They're learning how to hold the club. They're learning how to stand. They're learning how to swing back, try and hit the ball in the middle, swing through. Once you get those fundamentals, even if you're an adult, once you get those fundamentals, you can really start to progress quite quickly through formal golf lessons. So I have a kid at the moment who's 6 who does My Golf. That's my youngest. The youngest private lesson kid I've got is 7.
Okay. 7's very young, isn't it, for private?
Yeah. Yep. He comes in for half an hour though. Turns out to be more like 25 minutes when you talk for a little bit and you show him a couple of things. But I think that's, in terms of what they can absorb, half an hour is plenty.
No, that's cool. And I think junior coaching has improved over the years, and I think having those pathways where they're getting taught the basics of golf but in a fun way, and then they aren't just standing up in a straight line hitting golf balls. They're throwing balls, they're hopping, they're jumping, they're skipping, they're doing all those things that we should be doing as kids. So that's certainly good advice. Really cool.
That's where I've been using TrackMan a lot for those sorts of things. Like I couldn't think of anything worse for my kid to be standing on a driving range at Sandhurst in the middle of winter, hitting golf balls in 40-kilometre winds on that driving range. So having the ability to go inside, hey, we're going to do some chipping on TrackMan, then we're going to go play some games on TrackMan. And the engagement levels far better, the enjoyment levels far better. They're using technology. They're not getting cold. They're not going to get disheartened by being out there. It's where technology, I think, plays a massive part in getting better as coaches and providing better product for students and kids.
That extremely makes sense. And just to reinforce that, those two kids I brought into the centre when I had them out on the golf course at Sandhurst, probably 4 or 5 weeks ago now, are still talking about their experience hitting balls into the screen, trying to hit those, just play those games on TrackMan. And it keeps, as you said, it keeps them engaged. They obviously the targets are in different spots on the screen each time, so they're teaching themselves how to aim and hit different types of shots. So, and they're still talking about it, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
No, that's awesome. Okay, so trainee program. So obviously you've gone on from junior golf and you've gone into the trainee program. This is kind of a standard question for all these guys that have fairly recently graduated. I'm curious on your thoughts on the trainee program. It's changed heaps over the years since I went through, and I'm always curious to get thoughts on what you thought going through that program.
Mixed thoughts, only because I felt like the people who I knew through my father, not that they knew everything, but I was just very fortunate to have them, or to know them really, and to have experienced coaching from them and whatnot. So I got things out of every session, but I felt like I was a little bit, I don't want to sound arrogant here, but I felt like I was advanced going into the program in terms of what I knew already. But the day you think you know everything is the day you give it away, right?
Makes sense.
So you're always trying to pick up things. It's great. It teaches you resilience, because there was many a time where I just wanted to go, I've had enough of this. And but you don't realize what's at the end of the carrot, if you like. I said to myself in the first year, I'm going to go overseas in the end of the second year on a boys' trip. So that carrot was sort of in front of me as well to start, push through. And then third year was a bit of a struggle because I had the operation in the end of the second year as well, in terms of playing, which I never thought I'd encounter. I just thought I'd pass pretty comfortably, but I was very lazy in that third year. Wasn't organised with time, wasn't organised with practice and scheduling and all that sort of stuff. Schoolwork was never an issue, I felt. Always got the stuff handed in on time. That's something that Richard was good with. Right, when are you getting stuff in on time? Not that I was late with anything, but they were questions we had daily. You doing some homework today? You doing some homework today? So that was very good. But as a whole, it teaches you so much, right? You get the experience in a golf club or in a retail environment, or they're expanding out now, driving ranges, indoor driving ranges, retail shops. So you get that experience. You get to do some coaching if that's a path you want to go down, which that's the path I wanted to go down. So that sort of that piqued my interest, or management, and having good mentors around me was really important. I had Tony Craswell down at Latrobe, who was fantastic. He was my mentor. So, and then you bounce ideas off other trainees too. Mitch Olmus is a good friend of mine. He came, or we did our traineeships at the same time. So you make lifelong friends. You really do, and it's fantastic. I can't speak highly enough. Last year I presented to the first year trainees.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was like a
How did that go?
nostalgic. That was first sort of presentation too. So I don't know. It was very, very nostalgic though, because I was like, oh, I've been in their shoes. I know what they're thinking. When's the next guy on, and when's lunch? And I'm hungover from going out. And, but no, it was very good, and it's a really good program. Everything can be improved. Don't get me wrong, but as a whole, it's a really, really good program, and we're lucky to have it in Australia. It's one of the leaders around the world. The other PGAs around the world are pinching ideas from us. So it's a fantastic program that the guys run down at the PGA, and can't recommend it enough. It really, you get all aspects. You get to play, you get to coach if you want to coach, you get to manage if you want to manage, you get to get into game development if you want to game develop. There's a myriad of options when you do finish your traineeship, which is fantastic. You go to university and you study something, you don't necessarily have potentially 4 different streams to enter in. So it's fantastic for career progression and development, and especially if you don't know what you want to do at your first year, you start to experience all those different areas of golf, and it's brilliant. Can't speak highly enough of it.
Yeah, no, that's cool. It's it's a space that's constantly changing and improving and evolving, and it's changed again fairly recently, but it gives you exposure to all the different areas of what the golf game's all about. It isn't just playing, it isn't just coaching, it isn't just being in a pro shop. You get exposed to all different types of it, which is really cool. And as you said, it's a pretty heavy workload. You're working full time and you're essentially studying full time as well. You've got to keep your time organised so you can get stuff done.
Absolutely. It's
and you are exactly right. You obviously had a head start coming in because you had exposure to those guys that you had exposure to as a kid and as a junior, and before you came into the program, you're getting world class content from those guys. So you certainly had a foot in the door.
Absolutely.
Prior to starting, which is really cool. So, what was the first step out of the trainee program? You headed straight out to coach, or did you try something else before then, or talk me through that?
I was extremely lucky. I rang up Marty and maybe halfway through my third year and said, "Hey, I want to do some caddying." I'd caddied as a junior with pros that Richard had taught. I can remember one of my first experiences on the golf course was with Mark Allen. He played. There was two experiences I remember. One was at Box Hill when he played in the Pro-Am. This is when I would have been 10, 11, 12 maybe. And then there was one at Yarra Yarra, the Master of the Amateurs Pro, and we played with Jason Day as a young 15, 16-year-old.
Oh, wow.
Right, and I thought, I think I wouldn't mind doing this for a living. So I was lucky enough in 2015 to caddy for Nathan Holman when he won the Australian PGA.
Nice.
So that was cool. So I did that for a little bit, and then sort of go, well, what am I going to do next? So that lasted for a few months. And then the opportunity to coach came up. Now, I always wanted to, but never really pursued it hard enough. And then all of a sudden, my junior program went from 10 to 20 to 30 to 40. And yeah, the program sort of built and I really enjoyed it. Then when I moved from Rosanna, I took up a full-time role at Golf Tech in the Melbourne CBD, where they had indoor TrackMan membership and simulators, and was coaching out of there. And then was very fortunate in 2018 to start working at Freeway Golf Club and Malvern Valley Golf Club, where started at Freeway, progressed into Malvern Valley, where my coaching sort of really progressed and took off. They didn't have a practice fairway there, so I did a lot more chipping, pitching, putting, bunkers, and on-course stuff. And then that's really where my love for, not where, but that was because of the influences on the coaching facilities I had, that's where my putting coaching really took off and sort of really developed, and something that I really want to pursue going further. It's probably the one part of the game I feel really comfortable to have a conversation with anyone about. Still trying to learn and develop and get better like everyone else. But yeah, that's where sort of the career's progressed to, and really enjoying my time at the PGA. I'm looking after the golf development program now. So Nick sort of handed that to me now, which is fantastic. I'm loving it, and we just got a new crew in at the moment. So they're sort of very raw when it comes to coaching and to training and what it takes to prepare yourself to be effectively an athlete in the program. So it's a great program, and really very, very lucky to have landed on my feet in that regard. Nick's fantastic, Nick Golowski, that is. Don't tell him that. Hopefully he's not listening.
I'm sure he's tuning in.
He's been fantastic to me, and so have the PGA. So yeah, it's all going really well at the moment.
No, sounds really cool. There's a few things I want to touch on there. Firstly, how many kids are in the performance program this year? How many you got?
So when you add the golf management diploma program, we can have anywhere between 8 to 12.
Nice.
in the program. So it's fairly big now. They get Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They're with me basically all day, and then Tuesday, Thursdays they've got gym in the morning with Scott Williams, who's a really he's an expert in what he does in the strength and conditioning game. So he's fantastic to have him, and they have Nick on a Thursday still. And yeah, we are progressing really nicely this year. So it's I look forward to hopefully mentoring a few guys and girls, and hopefully they graduate to become trainees either next year or years after. So yeah, it's fantastic.
Sounds good. Now, I just had to correct you just quickly on that. It's Dr. Scott Williams now. He's finally got that PhD.
I knew that. Hopefully he's not listening either, otherwise I'll be in trouble.
He's coming on the podcast to talk about his PhD, but he has to have his surgeries and stuff done first before he comes back on. So he's, for a fit guy, he's constantly injured. So
I know, right?
But he's coming on at some stage to talk about his PhD and his final thesis, which has finally got approved, and he's put the cap and gown on now. So he's officially Dr. Scott Williams now, which is really cool.
Officially Doctor. Okay, we'll call him the Doc.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So Golf Tech. So you're in Golf Tech, which is in Collins Street in the CBD in the city. I've spoken about this with a couple of guests on the show that have been in those indoor centres. What type of clientele did it attract, and how did you get clients in there? Because it's a bit different to a golf course where you've got golfers coming through the pro shop all the time. How did you get people in there?
We are very fortunate, or I was very fortunate that obviously I could be mistaken. I know there's a house of golf there in the city, and but basically it's the only place you could hit balls in the city. And golf's a relatively big sport in Melbourne. So we had no issues getting clients in. They were also sharing the space with the golf clearance outlet at the time. I think it's now the House of Golf. So I was Monday to Friday, I was really busy. I'd do anywhere from 6 to 12 lessons a day. So it was packed. Trackman in each bay, membership model. So, you come in, book your bays online, pay your membership online. I was basically the only one coaching there. The owners at the time sort of progressed out to expand the business a little bit, so they weren't coaching at all. So it was really busy, and they had no issues getting people in. Fridays and Saturdays was a bit quieter, but that businessman or woman who was playing golf on the weekends wanted to hit balls for half an hour to an hour had somewhere with Trackman. How fortunate's that, right? So, really, it was really busy. Actually, surprisingly busy when I first started. I couldn't believe how busy it was.
Okay, and you were getting serious golfers. Obviously, they weren't just average hacks. They were actual proper golfers, so to speak. Yeah,
majority of them would have had a handicap. I would have, if I went back on the numbers, I reckon 80% would have had a handicap. Enough that they knew what Trackman was. A lot of people already knew what Trackman was, and then a lot of them knew what data they were looking at, which is like, how good's that, right? So yeah, it was very, very fortunate in that regard.
Okay, so then how was the change? You said you went to Freeway next. Was the one after Golf Tech was Freeway?
Yeah. So I went to Freeway to work for Sean Gammon.
So you've gone
really good guy, Shawnee.
You've gone from essentially a clientele that's probably seeking technology, serious golfers to a public course, and this is no crack on public courses, but you probably aren't getting the type of golfer that was coming through Golf Tech. How did you adjust your coaching to suit that?
No, yeah, you get almost not the complete opposite. That's being too rude, but yeah, you get a completely different clientele who potentially don't know what Trackman is, or potentially have myths or misconceptions of ball flight, or from whatever it could be. So that was part of the reason I wanted to move, is to not to tell people they were wrong, but hey, there's a world out there where technology can really help us, and using what I learned at Golf Tech to apply that to potentially golfers that never really knew what technology was. So that was a huge adjustment. Communication had to be really to be different in terms of sort of the message we were trying to get across, So that was quite difficult, but thought I found really good little strategies like, hey, if we're hitting too far down on the ball, you get this type of divot. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Or if we're getting no divot, you're hitting too far up on the ball. So those little things you need to adjust. But if you've got a TrackMan there, the numbers aren't lying to you. You know, the numbers aren't lying to you if you're hitting it 7 degrees down with your 7-iron or 3 degrees up with your 7-iron. So, you know, it's obviously validation there, but he really had to adjust, and then had to adjust more at Malvern because there was no practice fairway.
Oh, wasn't there? Okay.
No, there's 3 nets. One of them's used to keep the golf carts in, and the other 2 are quite small. So adjusting to on course, they had a big putting green, small chipping area, bunker that wasn't very good, but there was a lot of on course lessons. And really, I mean, I put a huge post that would have been 3 or 4 meters high by a couple of meters wide, golf lessons available. And I couldn't believe when I started how many people wanted golf lessons. I thought I might have got 1 or 2 a week. I was doing sort of 20 lessons a week on top of working in the shop. So that was huge, and doing a lot more on-course stuff, which is fantastic. Obviously, it's great to be able to hit a really nice 7-iron, have a good swing, but golf's a game, so we need to start playing it better.
And I've had this conversation with a few coaches that have been on the podcast, and there's a push more towards that on course type coaching setups now, as opposed to spending time on the range. And I've brought this point up a few times. It's a weird sport, golf, because most other sports you learn to play it and you train to play it on the course or the court or the field that you're actually going to play the game on. Whereas as golf coaches, we traditionally take them off to a practice fairway or some sort of hitting bay where they're not actually playing the game, so to speak. I'm curious in your thoughts on that.
To take it a step further, not one single golf shot's the same.
Very true.
So, you know, why do we coach guys, girls, men, women to just only hit 7-irons when they're having a lesson? It's just because of the way it's been, right?
Yeah.
But do we change it? Maybe not. Should we change it? Maybe. I don't know. But it's a fascinating question. I'm certainly guilty of spending too much time worrying about what a swing looks like. I'm sure we all are. I thought about this before coming on, about my first lesson at Golf Tech. I've absolutely just made me get shivers down my spine about the stuff I would have been talking about. And at the time, I thought it was really good, right? So it's quite funny how we develop as humans and coaches and our coaching styles. But yeah, it's we never hit the same shot. We never play the same golf course with the same wind, with the same weather. Yet we try and always hit our 7-irons, and we're either practicing, guilty, or coaching. But you need to have some sort of skill base to be able to go on the course and then adjust. So that's where is it the chicken or is it the egg? Like, what are we waiting for here? So it's a really cool question and a really cool, completely different answers. Where I stand at the moment is, hey, we need to learn fundamentals, and we need to be able to not swing a certain way, but we need to do some certain things right. So then when we do get on the course and we need to hit a half 8-iron, not a full 9, you're able to. And that's something I found with the performance program, is that they're all just used to hitting flat out 6-irons. Where at Sandhurst, as you know, it's the windiest course in Melbourne, and there's very, very rarely full shots. It's, let me hit a half 7. Let me hit a cut little 5 in there, or a flat little draw and let it take the slope and roll a little bit. They're all used to hitting these high 6-irons that go 170. Well, that's not really the shot. So being able to develop their techniques and then being able to teach them shots is an important part of any coaching, I think.
It's a hard space, and I can see both sides of the argument, and I think I'm a bit like you. I've changed my mind 14 times in the last 12 months about what should come first, and I'm sure any coaches tuning in will have their own opinions on what it is, so feel free to get on my social media and give me your opinion on this as well, because it's yes, you have to learn to play the game, but you have to have some sort of base before you take them on the golf course. They can't just go out there as a raw learner. They've got to be able to make some sort of contact, don't they? They have some sort of swing going, and then how long before? Then I've had clients over the years that have spent too long on the driving range, and I can't get them onto the golf course because they're scared to go on the golf course. So it's such a challenging space, and it's a chicken or the egg type situation, isn't it? You have to kind of guess sometimes and just hope for the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's you just got to get that blend right, don't you? Like, you got to spend enough time making them technically better, but you got to spend enough time teaching them how to play golf. And then you sort of question the lesson model. Should we be giving lessons that go for more than an hour? Like, we only give lessons that go for an hour or more at the PGA Academy, but should it be 2 or 3 hours where we do some on-course stuff, we do some technical stuff, we do some TrackMan testing, we do some... When was the last time someone just goes, I want to do a few hours on putting? That never happens.
Yeah.
Right? When was the last time someone goes, let's do some course charting? Let's figure out how to play the game better and get technically savvy and a little bit better so they can adjust for those course strategies. It just doesn't happen. So does that actual lesson model need to change? Maybe not. Maybe people are just happy giving 1 hour lessons and being full, but it's a really cool question to be talking about. Because, you look at the coaches overseas, like, what is it, Hank Haney or Ledbetter, they only give 2 to 3 hour lessons.
Yeah, they don't do half hours, they do half days, don't they?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, half an hour lesson, what do you get out of a half an hour lesson? I can understand people are time poor and your facility may not allow you to do 1 hour sessions, but what are people actually learning in that half an hour? By the time you do video, if you do video for 5 or so minutes, you talk to them about their game for 5 or so minutes, there's 10 minutes gone.
Here's a thought for you as well. I'm interested in this because I've done this and screwed up people in the past. I'm interested in your thoughts on this. Why should a golf lesson have a time frame to it anyway? I know if someone's booked in for the full hour and you've got them to a place where they need to be in 45 minutes, should you not just call it quits then? I know I've gone for that extra 10 minutes and screwed someone up because I've gone too far. So sometimes you can actually... too much coaching can come about sometimes. I don't know.
Yeah, no, totally. Like with the performance squad, because we go for blocks. On a Monday we start around 9 o'clock. We're in the classroom. We've been using a lot of the Scott Fawcett Decade stuff, who I'm doing more and more with and love it. So we spend sort of a small session for maybe 20 minutes doing some stuff with that, and then we go till about 12 o'clock. If I think the session should be, we finish at 11:30 because we've done a good enough job, we should, and we do, finish at 11:30. But if I think we need to go an extra half an hour because someone's not getting something, or they're not working hard enough, or they're not doing something I want them to do, then yeah, let's drag it out. So I think that's the chicken or the egg. If you've got someone at 11 o'clock and you've got a lesson at 12 o'clock, can you go that extra 15 minutes?
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Because you do want that flexibility to be able to give that extra time if you need to, but you do have to pay the bills as well. I've had this argument with employers over the journey. I used to like to book 45 sessions on the hour, so I'd have that bit of extra flexibility to go over if I needed to. But certain employers over the years have said no, they pay for 45, they get 45. So it's certainly a catch-22. It's certainly a hard situation, but if you get the high enough profile, you can kind of do what you want, can't you? If you are the Hank Haney, you can do what you want. So
yeah. Listen, I'm sure if Rory McIlroy lobbed onto my doorstep tomorrow and goes, "Hey, let's spend the day together, or let's spend 3 hours together," and he needed 5, mate, we can have 5. No worries. Or if he goes, "I want 3," and we stop at an hour and a half because he feels like he's where we're done. Yeah, well then, mate, we're only going for an hour and a half. Sure, no worries.
Exactly right.
Bit different when someone's a 14 marker, or as an example, a 14 marker, and they're paying their hard-earned money to come and see you, and it's, they want to spend their 140 for the hour. They want an hour.
Yeah, and it's hard too because, as you said, you are paying premium prices for that coaching session, and you do want to give them the value. You're almost better off though, and that's what I tend to do now, is if I think they're happy with their full swing and they got to where they need to be. Let's go and do some putting for 10 minutes and just have a quick peek at something different rather than giving them something new on top of the stuff that we already covered. So that's really cool. Now, seeing your social media posts, the common theme that seems to be popping up now is juniors and putting. So obviously that's where you're kind of specialising. You said before that you're trying to go down that putting pathway as a specialist coach. So talk me through the theory behind that and what piqued your interest in there and how are you going about becoming a specialist putting coach?
Yeah, well, obviously that's how I really started playing mini golf. As cliche as that is, it's how I started on my golfing journey, if you like. And then as you get older, you learn and you take things on. And it's not that I don't like doing full swing or pitching or short game. It's just an area that I really enjoy. So that's where it's led me. I had a conversation with Rick Sessinghouse when he came out earlier in the year. And I pulled him aside for a couple of minutes and I said, hey, what would you do if you had Rick 2.0? And he goes, I'd be a specialist in something. And then that didn't confirm anything, but it's like, oh, okay, that's what do I really like doing? And I really like developing kids, really like developing younger players, really like where Richard sort of was in that state team environment and community, if you like. So that's where that interest peaked. And then also the putting stuff. I don't think there's too many guys in the country who like specialize in putting. A couple of guys do aim point, whatnot, but no one really specializes in putting in the country. And Richard's always been a really good putting coach. So it's like, well, okay, that makes sense. I can lean on that. I'm learning more with TrackMan putting the more I spend on there. I'm on there probably daily, annoying Isaac because he's working for them. What's this mean and what's that and what's this and what's that? And then spending time with, I've done aim point in the past, but then again, doing it again today with Jamie Donaldson, and next year I'll get certified in that and doing some stuff with Noel Blundell on the psychology of putting. It's just a space. I don't know if you correct me on this one. If anyone does a really good job in the country, Grant Field obviously does a pretty good job with Cam Smith, but I don't think he's known as a specialist putting coach as such.
Yeah, I can't come around. Obviously, there's guys overseas, John Graham, those kind of guys that are specialist putting coaches, but I can't think of anyone off the top of my head in Australia that's doing it.
Yeah, so I think it's a space I really enjoy first and foremost, and then I think it's an area that we as coaches not that we don't spend enough time on, but it's if we've got 15 minutes at the end of a lesson, students tend to want to do a little bit of putting, where putting should be a half day thing, green reading, where you start the ball, your speed, your control, drills, practice habits, routines, the psychology. There's 7 or 8 areas I've listed off that I don't think we do well enough, in my opinion.
Well, I'm extremely guilty of being a very poor putting coach. I'll put my hand up right now and say it isn't a strong suit in my own coaching. So now I've got someone to send my clients to for putting coaching. So they'll be on your doorstep if I get someone querying putting lessons.
Good.
And so are you Sam is obviously the tool that you're using at the PGA. Is that something you're happy with, or have you played with Capto much, or have you used any other tools?
I haven't played with Sam through Richard, but TrackMan putting, I believe, is the best tool to be using. What it picks up with the ball, what it picks up with face, with path, it picks up basically everything and more that PuttLab does. The only thing it doesn't get, which is slightly annoying, is aiming. That's where PuttLab has a sort of little advantage, in my opinion. But what it does ball roll wise, what it does with skid, what it does with bouncing, how you can learn from it, I think is far more advantageous. And you don't have to add any tripods to it. You simply set it up, hit it, off you go. And yeah, it's just we've got PuttLab and TrackMan at the PGA, but it's just we just use TrackMan. Things like Sniper Vision we use. It's Noel Blundell's, the putting arc. Phil Kenyon has great putting aids with Visio. So there's not much we don't use. But yeah, we just have TrackMan there, raring to go, and it doesn't take long to set up, and you don't have to add anything to the putter. So one thing I found when I was playing is using putt lab's great, but you add that tripod on there, it makes the putter much heavier.
Yeah.
As soon as you take the putter off, I take the tripod off the putter. It's like, oh, okay, got to adjust to it again. So it's TrackMan I use. Putt lab's great. TrackMan's great. Haven't played with Capto at all, so I don't want to comment on Capto. But yeah, just TrackMan and Putt lab.
It is. It's a good point you make with regards to the technology. It's always interesting. I've always been curious, like even with the 3D stuff with Ryan, how much of an impact does having the actual sensors on your body have to your swing when you're actually playing, and how much it's on the clubs. Obviously, you've got those attached as well with Sam, and even with the 3D stuff as well. So it's got to have some sort of influence on how the person moves the club.
Yeah, there's a guy. You probably would have heard of him, Mark Bull, over in America.
Yeah, no, Mark.
Mark. He's got a get him on the podcast. He's amazing. He's got a 3D app that is wireless and is as accurate with the gear on as it is off. So yeah, if anyone's out there who is coaching and wants a wireless 3D app, Mark Bull's app is fantastic. Used it before myself, on players. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, because there's always been that bit of a catch-22 sometimes. Because I've worked with, have you come across Chris Welsh before? Zenolink.
I haven't come across Chris. No.
Yeah, so Chris is an awesome person and really good at what he does. But in his system, you would shoot the swing from two different angles, and you'd shoot a 3D cube. And you send both those clips off to him, and then they'd process it, and then you'd get the 3D report back. So that was what you said. You could actually hit the shots as you would normally without the sensors on you, but then you've got to wait 2 or 3 days to get the report back.
Yeah, right.
It sounds like Mark's system, if it's accurate, like you say, sounds like it'll be a good little way to be able to hit shots and still get that data straight away.
Yeah, and that's where I find. It's like I love 3D, I love the space, but when you do, from my playing point of view, when you add those things on, take them off, try and do things with certain areas of your swing or the body, it is quite heavy, and it is uncomfortable. Yeah. No one gets on there and goes, yeah, this is comfortable, let's keep doing this. And it's not the 3D bio guy's fault or anything like that, it's just the way it is. But Mark's developed this really cool app that if you had them on or if you had them off, it's reading the same data.
Awesome.
So, and it's very affordable. I can't recall the cost, but it's under $1,000 Australian, which is, you buy a 3D body motion sensor, you're up for more than $1,000, I can assure you.
Without question. So, okay, Mark, if you're tuning in, you are on the hit list already, but I'll definitely be coming to talk to you at some point in time. Mate, there's some standard questions I like to ask everyone that comes on the show. So I'm going to throw those at you if you can spare me a bit more time. I've kept you for almost an hour already. So again, I think it's going to be a consistent guest. I think you'll be coming back more and more often. So
yeah, happy to.
It'll be all good because I didn't cover half the points I had written down. So I think you're definitely coming back on again. So what would you say to young coaches out there starting out? What tips would you have for them?
Something I would lean on, your mentors that the PGA provide you. That's massive. Again, I was very lucky, but lean on people you trust, lean on your mentors, and seek out what your boss thinks. Just because potentially your boss might not be coaching, he might have had lessons from someone, or he might know someone. So if you're looking to get in that coaching, or you're looking to improve your playing, or whatever field you're in, seek out what your boss, what other trainees are doing. It's really important. So that's some advice I would give, or ask the PGA too. We might be able to help you. We might be able to point you in the right direction. Just because we're in Melbourne doesn't mean we can't point to someone in Queensland or in New South Wales or Tasmania, wherever it could be. Point you in the right direction to go, hey, go spend some time with person X down in Queensland. Richard Woodhouse, Grant Field, couple just off the top of my head, right? So just ask questions, ask things of different people. You don't know who knows anyone. Like, we could be who was I talking to the other day? I was talking to the commercial guy at the PGA, and he goes, I didn't realize you knew person X. Yeah, I know person X since I've been in nappies. So yeah, you just don't know who people know, and you don't know who you're going to come across.
And we are spoiled for choice in Australia. We've got high quality coaches in every capital city, pretty much. There's not as if there's because we're in Perth. There's some crappy coaches over there. There's good coaches everywhere, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very, very blessed in this country to have some of the best. So yeah, let's lean on them.
And they certainly all seem to be very approachable as well, which is a really cool thing as well. They're always happy to chat, which I'm finding in the podcast as well. If I hit them up, I don't think I've had any Aussie coaches say no to me yet, so that's a good thing.
Do you know what we like doing as coaches? We like talking.
Yes, very true, very true.
So happy to talk.
Okay, advice for golfers out there. What would you say to the golfers out there?
I think the biggest misconception is that we want to tear your games upside down. As golf coaches, we actually want to help people. We want to help people get better because it's a good reflection on us, right? We help you play better golf. You shoot better scores. You're happier. That's what we want to do, right? So I think there's a big misconception out there that don't go and have lessons from the local pro or your club pro or whoever it may be. Have your lessons. They're trying to help you, right? They're not trying to make you worse. So if you get the opportunity to have a lesson or create a relationship, or it might be, can you just take me on the course and tell me how you'd play this hole? It could be something as simple as that takes 10, 15 minutes. We are happy to help. So seek out our help. Okay, so that's some advice I'd give golfers. I mean, I've had lessons since I can remember, right? So it's a very biased in that regard, but have lessons. People are here to help you. Best players in the world have coaching daily.
No, that's a good thing. I like it. I think that's perfect advice. And that probably is the biggest key point is if tour players are still getting coaching, there's got to be something in it, doesn't there? So that's really cool. Okay, so you can answer this one. There's two parts to the question. You can answer both parts or just one part. I don't mind. Where do you see yourself or where do you see coaching in 5 years' time?
To answer the first one, I'd like to see myself in 5 years being one of the better putting coaches in the country. I'd like to see myself as one of the better coaches, right? But we don't actually go around going, hey, I want to be number one. I'd just like to be someone who can help people and be really good at it. That's what I'd like to do. And then where do I see coaching? I don't love the online model. Send a swing, get some information, go away, simply because that's, like we've been speaking about, a small portion of the game. That's a small portion. So I don't know how many people have done online lessons, but have you just sent drivers and 7-irons? I would presume so. So I'm not going to get into that space, I wouldn't have thought. I think information providing is going to get bigger. That's something I do like online, the people giving out information. That's pretty cool. You could learn golf from doing that. One issue you have with that, though, is that, if you're doing something in your putting or your chipping or your pitching and you watch something and it's not irrelevant for you, that could be a problem. But as a society, we want information really fast. So I can see the pros and cons of where coaching can get to and could get to, and we're very accessible with information at the moment. So I hope the face-to-face still continues, but maybe we get to a stage in 2-3 years' time where we are booking out students for half a day or full days. I've done a few of them at Sandhurst, and you get to go through everything. You get to watch them play. You get to watch them practice. You get to watch them with a 7-iron. You get to watch them with a putter, with a lob wedge, hitting high little fades, hitting low draws, playing into the wind. You get to see all those things, and it's really beneficial for golfers.
It's cool. It's an exciting time, I think, for coaching. I think it's improving and evolving very quickly at the moment. And I think, I certainly get your point with regards to online coaching. It can be a challenging space. I think it has its role, but I don't think it can be the only thing you do. I think there's got to be some sort of face-to-face as well. So,
yeah, absolutely.
I like it. Anything that you would change in your journey so far? Anything that you would, if you had the chance to go back and change, is there anything that you would do that to?
I would have lent more on the mentors I had more. You don't realize how lucky you are until sometimes you reflect on that. Would have asked more questions, would have spent more of my free time with them rather than at the pub with friends. So
the pub's fun too, though.
The pub's fun too, right? But you don't learn too much at the pub except the hangover for the next day. So, those sort of things I wish I did. And now you're always trying to fast track now, because I felt like I missed a little bit there. So that's something I might change is going forward anyway with my learning and development is ask questions, spend time when you can, like I've done today at Royal Melbourne with the guys. I was sort of umming and ahhing, and then I was like, no, let's go and do it and take the time and effort that's required and go and do it and go and learn and pick up on things. So, that's something I'd do that would be different. I'd lean on people who I trust and seek questions, and hopefully they've got answers, or they might seek answers somewhere else.
I like it. I think, again, just to reinforce that point, we don't realise how much time we have or haven't got with someone. We obviously lost Ramsey, and extremely young. So that's someone there that we thought we had years and years with that we didn't get that time with, and he was world class, obviously. So to be able to pick his brain a few more times, I would certainly go back and do that.
I wonder how much money people would pay to be able to pick his brain right now. I really do. He was working with almost every second European Tour player at some stages.
So far ahead of his time with regards to his training ideas and how he was going about it was just awesome.
Yeah, astronomical. So it's even like Luke Mackey, right? We used to play heaps of junior golf together, nearly every second Saturday, or probably every second Saturday at Rosanna. Now that he's overseas with Golf Australia in Florida, you just don't get to lean on them as much as you should have and could have. So that's definitely Don't be afraid to ask questions. I don't know of many golf pros that say no, I'm not going to help you. I really don't.
No, I don't think I've come across anyone really that said no, go away. If they're having to approach them, they'll tend to help you out, which is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you said something earlier on about if you've stopped improving, you should give it up, which I certainly agree with. So where do you go for your sources of information? Places your head to learn new things?
Yeah, always lean on my dad. We constantly, maybe once every 2 to 3 days, touch base. You got anything new? No, yes. What are they? Share some ideas. We have a little WhatsApp group, a few of us, where we're sharing ideas. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? No, it's garbage. Okay, well, I won't pursue that, or that's really good. So I lean on Marty, Isaac, Brooke, Luke a little bit, not as much anymore, not as much as I probably should. Darren, Nick at the PGA, Jordan the physio at the PGA. So they're the guys I'm leaning on. And then you ask enough questions of enough people. Hey, what do you think of person X? And they're really good. You go and seek their help and their opinions on things. So spent the day with Jamie Donaldson, knew he was really good. Richard said, yeah, go, that'd be really good and really beneficial. And Richard Hatt, really good, really beneficial. Go and see them, and did an aim point class today, and just always trying to pick other people's brains who are really good at what they do.
Makes sense. I like it a lot. Where can people find you? Let's do some plugs. Social media handles, links, emails.
Probably the best is email. I'm on social media a little bit, not a hell of a lot, but I am Cooney at pga.org.au. I'm at the PGA Academy at Sandhurst. So very, very fortunate to be there. Otherwise, Michael Cooney Golf on Instagram and on Facebook, but not hugely on social media. My wife runs my social media. You'd think would be on more. She works in social media, right? You'd think I'd be on there a hell of a lot more than I am. But I should be on there more, but I'm not. 2 little kids get in the way a lot, especially when they're running around like headless chickens. So
family comes first, mate. Family comes first.
They do.
No, they do. I will put some links in the show notes for everyone so they can find you if they want to continue the conversation. Michael, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming in and chatting to me tonight. Awesome conversation. Definitely feel, as I've said this numerous times so far in the podcast, part 2 and part 3 and part 4 coming up. So you might be a bit of a regular guest, I think, with some coaching topics I've got in mind to discuss with coaches. So
absolutely love to. You're doing a really good job, so keep doing it. I'll be on here whenever you want me. Loved it.
Appreciate it, mate, and we'll catch up really soon.
Thanks, guys.